Welcome everybody to our next discussion about a particular spiritual gift that I'd love for you to focus on over the next week. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the spiritual gift of diligence. There'll be moments when the Lord will unfold possibilities you have never even considered in your life. Some of you have experienced that, right? But there will also be days when you will find yourself caught up in small thinking. Days when you might wish you could go back to the way things were in your life. I think we've all experienced that too. This is what happened to Peter after our Savior Jesus Christ died. It's in John 21. We read an invitation that would lead Peter to understand the Christlike attribute of diligence. But before that invitation came, Peter had gone back to what he knew. You remember he said to his apostles, I go a-fishing. And several followed him in doing that. So just like before, as we've begun these discussions, there was a long night of fishing. And at that night, where they caught nothing. When the morning came, Peter saw a man standing on the shore. The man called out a simple invitation. He said, "Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find." Peter had heard this invitation before. I wonder what he felt in that moment. He heard that invitation 3 years earlier. And so he did what he had done then. They cast, therefore, now, and they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. It didn't take long before the disciples recognized the miracle and began rowing to shore. But not Peter, right? Peter, love Peter. He's a little rash. When Simon Peter realized that it was the Lord, he did cast himself into the sea. Can you see him doing that, jumping over the side of the boat, right? In his excitement to be with the Lord, Peter jumped into the water and began to swim. He wanted so badly to see. Now this is post-death resurrection, right? I'm sure he... So it was after the counting of the 153 fish that the Savior asked the question, right? These boats weren't very big yet. 153 fish would have been big. He said, I love this scene. It's the life-changing moment, I think, for Peter, right? He says, "Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me?" Now, you and I have heard that question and know this scene before. Even Elder Holland has talked about it. The Savior at this moment, I think, is preparing one last invitation, right? Because he wants Peter to become this great prophet that he needs to become and become more like him, like the Savior. But I believe it's the one invitation that changed the trajectory of Peter's life, right? And he says after he said, "Lovest thou me?" he says, "Feed my sheep." From what the scriptures tell us about Peter, it seems he probably didn't know anything about sheep. I'm sure he didn't. I mean, he's a fisherman, for heaven's sake. He probably knew a little bit, right? Because he was around the markets, other things like that. But he was a fisherman. He knew about boats. He knew about nets. He knew about fish. We all have kind of our focused areas of life, right? This final invitation would require more than just acceptance or obedience. It would require transformation. Peter needed to be transformed into the disciple and prophet that he needed to be. And it would require the Christ-like attribute of diligence. Preach My Gospel teaches, when you are diligent, you find joy and satisfaction in the Lord's work. Diligence includes doing many good things. The Lord requires we do our very best because it is His work and because the Savior Jesus Christ's work can put aside small thinking. Continuing to do good even when it's hard or you are tired. That's an interesting statement from Preach My Gospel. And it also says this. It says, center your heart and interest on the Lord and His work. So that's something all of us need to ask. Is that what we're centered on? Or are we busy centered on something else, right? I think today, if we want to have a life-changing, transformative, receive that spiritual gift of diligence as we focus on outward towards the Savior and on others, right? The Lord extends that same invitation to you and I. There's no other way. Feed my sheep. So-and-so, this is put your name. Lovest thou me? Feed my sheep. Accepting this invitation, I believe, will lead you and I to discover the Christ-like attribute of diligence. Because you have to be diligent, you have to be consistent, even when you're tired or overwhelmed and don't know what to do. It's a conscious decision to move forward and bless the life of others. And the only way to keep moving forward is to receive the Savior's character, this characteristic called diligence. Okay, have a great day. I hope you think more about this particular discussion. And thank you for all you're doing. And we'll talk to you later.